Itza, Lustria, Warhammer World Lord Mazdamundi, greatest of all living Slann was pleased. The spell he was conjuring came along beautifully. Parts of the Lustrian coastline had to be redesigned. A strip along the western coast of the continent hindered the fishermen of his subjects rather itchingly, so after becoming aware of that problem, the Lord decided to solve it. Shaping whole continents was unproblematic for someone of his magical power, but to do it perfect, that was an art applied. Which was the reason Mazdamundi for hours had solely concentrated on the spell he was weaving. It would have taken him mere minutes to cast it, but since he wanted perfection, everything was arranged like it should be. The Lord could not know that his desire for a perfect spell execution would change the world forever in ways even he never imagined. His concentration bundled on one thing, his spell. The Slann Lord did not recognize the Chaos Demon, which had slipped through all defenses of Itza, until the creature was in striking distance. The demon, tasked to kill one of those entities who kept the anti-chaos seals around the polar continents up, struck with all of his magic-enhanced might. The Slann was far from being a pushover, and while his magical senses warned him late, it was enough to throw up a shield which lessened the wound to a painful, but non-fatal hit. Mazdamundi's counterattack sent the demon back screaming to the Choa's realms, banished forever, but the collateral damage was done. With the Slann Lord's concentration shifted on a life-and-death struggle, his main spell, fed in addition from the ritual place Mazdamundi was in, went out of control. Even the Slann could not dispel or otherwise stop it, the winds of magic already resonating and amplifying the half-cast spell into reality, mutating it in ways not desired. The magical energies ripped through the world and into the beyond. The feedback of the spell sent all Slann into a magical sleep. It would be centuries before they could awake again. Maybe it was divine intervention, a chaotic chance or a sign of the Old Ones. In reciprocity, the winds of magic infused the Great Seals with such a power that no chaos force would bring them down before the reawakening of the Slann. But this positivism was offset by the shock waves spreading out, shaping and shaking the Warhammer world to its core. And one tendril ripping through space-time would send the fates of the Warhammer world into a new direction. If it would be in favor of chaos or in favor of the races living there, only time could tell. Tower of Hoeth, Ulth, Warhammer world. The most famous High Elf lore master outside the Elven lands awoke with a scream. What his midsight showed him was unbelievable. The winds were singing in concert, while spreading around in totally random fashion. Teclis have never heard of a magical disaster on that scale. He doubted that such an occurrence had ever taken place during the lifetime of Elvenkind. But it was not his land which would bear the brunt of this. No, across the silent sea, and how could it be any different, Teclis thought, the old world in the thick of events as well once again. Two of his adepts had come to the sleeping room of their master, looking as shaken as he was. Projecting a front of calmness he did not feel, Teclis addressed the two. Aurelia, Raffator, prepare our traveling supplies. I feel we will be needed in the humans' old world very soon. Northern Hemisphere, Earth, Sol System. Earth was on its usual rotation around the Sun, when Controller's cache appeared out of space-time, bathing most of the Northern Hemisphere in it. Unknown phenomenons erupted out of nowhere. And since it was a shaper spell in the beginning, the winds of magic shaped and changed Earth on their pass. The whole thing was over in 8 minutes. When it was over, bizarre changes had happened. Mountains where none had been, new woods, new deserts, new lakes, often existing landmarks were reshaped into new or exaggerated forms. But after having stomached the first shock, a second, greater one came after assessing all that happened. Had the Chaos Gods been looking out for Earth, they would have laughed like seldom before. To the shock of all, where Germany had been mere hours before, now a muddy, swampy landscape, dotted with twisted flora and fauna, spread out. Some truly scared people were found by search teams, their clothes style from bygone days, talking in the dialect of Dutch. With Germany, her over 81 million people and her industry gone. 2012 became the year the economy died, as an aged folk singer sang. The global economy already strained, the sudden disappearance of such an important market, economy and more, such a large producer of quality goods, let it crash down like stone. It would be many years until Earth could recover from that loss and the new geographics. But for Earth the question remained, where was Germany? Outside the Chancellery, Berlin, Germany. The people of Berlin, the people of Germany were staring into the sky, seeing and trying to comprehend the second moon there. So nobody at first recognized that among the crowd outside the Chancellery the German Chancellor herself was standing. Angela Merkel was a doctor of physics, so this weird light and its aftermath had sent her brain into overdrive. It had actually been a fairly normal morning in Germany, when at 8:02 a glazing, rainbow-hued light suddenly appeared. For further 4 minutes, messages from all across Europe, North America and Northern Asia came in about the same happening there. The alarms had already been rung, the government members called for an emergency meeting, the Bundes were on high alert, when from one second to the other everything from outside Germany went silent. Then, as suddenly as it began, it was over. Not more than 8 minutes, according to the nuclear clocks in Braunschweig. The institutions of Germany tried to reach all Germans via phone, radio, TV and police acting as town criers. Everyone should go home, turn on TV and radio and wait for a message by the Chancellor, which would be aired in a quarter of an hour. Then, a further one when more was known. But for now, it seemed the light did not damage anything big in Germany. Angela Merkel had hit the right tone for her compatriots, stating that Germany was not under attack and such an event was totally unprecedented. She asked the Germans to keep calm and that any news would be aired as soon as possible, but considering the bizarre circumstances, the government needed some time to gather informations to get a clear picture. And that she would give a message with the newest informations in 2 hours. After her speech, the Chancellery and the meeting room of the government was flooded with totally weird messages. Roads across the borders simply vanished after the border lines, unknown vistas beyond Germany's frontiers. An hour later, all government members needed a pause, too strange were the messages. Soon the infos from the flyovers by the Luftwaffe would come in. Until then, a pause was given. So Angela Merkel had gone to mix with the crowd outside. Her scientist's brain was pondering the possible answers, none which pleased her, because while theoretically possible, it should not happen in reality. Being the daughter of a pastor, she prayed silently. Dear Lord in heaven, where are we? Luftwaffe Flight 31, flying over somewhere. The cameras and sensors of the 2 Recon Tornado jets were recording, doing their work, and the pilots, having flown more than 300 kilometers deep into the unknown at times, were now pulling their control sticks, bringing the planes onto a course for home. During the first phase of this recon, the 3 men and 1 woman in the jets had been fully concentrated on their duties. They still concentrated on their jobs, but since there were no bandits, UFOs or any other kind of enemy flights opposing them, the pilots could talk a little. Hauptmann, Captain Gerd Droppmann, the flight leader, could not and did not want to hide the amazement he felt. This all is totally far out. This cannot be France, Belgium or Switzerland below us. There is no way we could see a high mountain range from the position where Paris should be, if we were just displaced in time, like in a science fiction novel. Oberleutnant Sibyl Glaser, the sensor officer of the other tornado, affirmed that, "You are fully correct, Herr Hauptmann. Nothing, no place we flew over corresponds to what should be either. And I am still weirded out by that big river close to Aachen, Aix-en-Chapelle. A river mouth which easily can compete with the Amazonas Delta. A time travel, for lack of a better reason, would have been back to the time of the dinosaurs for that to be even remotely possible. But the settlements we saw and the size of them limit a possible time displacement to 4,000 years, tops. So, we are on another world, if this is not one of the freakiest nightmares I ever had and will wake soon. What shall we do now? Spoke up her pilot. Trupman answered that. We do our job, return to base and then we have time to freak out and hope for a solution of any kind. Castle Wittelsberg, Palatinate, Germany. Machiko Furukawa rubbed her eyes for the 5th time in the last hour, then looked again. The rubbing had not helped, she still saw something she should not see here, again. Several years earlier Machiko had met and married her German husband and left Japan to live with him. She worked as a translator and adult education center teacher. Her husband and she had used a holiday to go on a hike in the Palatinate forest. They began their hike early and by 8 o'clock they had reached the Wittelsberg with its fantastic outview. The restorated castle ruin stood on a rather high altitude, nearly 600 meters above sea level, with a great view not only over the Palatinate forest, but the Vosges mountains in France as well. The French border was just a short walk away from the castle. When the strange light hit, the pair took cover in the castle until it was over. Returning outside, they looked around. On the German side, nothing had changed, everything as before, as much as could be seen from the castle. But looking to the French side made both involuntary gasp. There were still some mountains, but some lower plains where none had been as well. And the kicker which sent the two into shock, were the 4 Japanese-style castles they could see from their place on the Wittelsberg. More than an hour had gone by with Machiko and her husband unsure what to do. Then a person looking distinctly like a samurai of a bygone age and his entourage of 4 other persons equally looking as coming from old Japan, neared the castle entrance. As a born Japanese, Machiko could easily see that those 5 were projecting a defiant facade, but were as scared as she was. Reaching a decision, Machiko said, "I go and talk to them." "Do you think that is wise, dear? You might be an own face, calming them, but if they are what we think... I just want you safe." Machiko pressed a fast kiss on her husband's mouth. "I know that you will defend me, but they are as scared as us. I might be able to keep this civil." Then they just looked at each other and began to laugh. The whole situation was just too bizarre to think too deeply about, for now. While Klaus secretly readied his Swiss Army knife, just in case, Machiko walked up to the arriving people. Tomoki Izamo, samurai and daimyo in service of the Emperor of Nippon, tried to keep all things straight. The whole situation was a bedlam. Just a short time before, he was patrolling his possessions close to the silent seashore, when the winds of magic played havoc with Nippon like never before. Now there was no shoreline anywhere. He and his entourage were somewhere inland. Or better, his land was now fully inland. Seeing 2 people on the tower of a ruined foreign castle, Tomoki decided to confront them, if they were simple victims like he was or responsible. If responsible, the wrath of a samurai would be the last thing they would see. He was happily surprised to see a Nipponese woman greeting them, but beside her stood a Gaijin no Kami, one of those very pale travelers and traders who sometimes visited Nippon. Hajime Mashite. Watashi tashi wa Furukawa Machiko to Klausu desu? Dozo yoroshiku onegai shimasu? Interesting. A southwestern dialect here in this region. But that can wait for later. At least I can talk with somebody. Kok irakozo. Watashi wa Izamo daimyo desu? Dozo yoroshiku onegai shimasu? After a proper greeting ritual done, the talks began in earnest. Neither Machiko nor Tomoki knew that their talk would be one of those few things which kept the whole situation from spinning out of control early on. Chancellery, Berlin, Germany. The Chancellery resembled more an overcrowded concert hall than the central point of the German executive. Dozens of work groups analyzed data. While the rooms were acceptable, the floors were a cacophony of cell phones ringing, printers working and beeps from laptops. Sprinkled in between were people bringing food and drink to the assembled groups. In the central meeting room, the German government stayed in emergency session now that the first news from the recon teams came in. It was a nightmare. All roads, walks, railways, pipelines simply cut off at the borderlines, and while a lot were thankfully sealed off by the event, not all were. No radio, TV, internet, telephone calls from outside Germany came in. The only positive was that 8 satellites were still in orbit and could be controlled. But beyond that, no signal from the rest of Earth. The landscape beyond the borders was totally unknown, and it became worse. For the last 30 minutes messages came in, saying that the Baltic Sea had vanished, while at the Benelux border of North Rhine-Westphalia a very large and broad river was now flowing. Topping this off were the calls from the Palatinate and Baden that they now bordered on a piece of old Japan, whose inhabitants insisted that they never heard of a Germany and were transplanted as well. This was enough to drive someone to drink. The various people in charge gave orders out while being put up with an literally endless stream of news. The THW and specialists are working on the pipelines, Herr Minister. We added a new part to the maps. These photos came from the recon flights over the Baltic. Damnation, that are quite a mass of trees for an ocean arm. And so dry, Tim. Funny. Where is the Chancellor? We have line standing to the Palatinate. This Daimyo Izamo guy could be convinced to try this magical contraption. He is willing to listen to us for now. Give me Ludwigshafen, Manfred. They have to power down what processes can be stopped and paused. And then you talk with Leverkusen. Thomas, how is the deployment of the Rapid Reaction Forces going? They have to keep the eastern and southern borders controlled. No, first, the Rhine is still flowing, and second, Angela is talking with someone of these peculiar Japanese guys down there. Yes, authorize a jet transfer for the diplomatic and combat engineering teams. If we can keep the lid on in the southwest, this can only be helpful. No, we still cannot say if everyone else is gone or we went somewhere else. No, tell this ox that this is a national emergency. Under what stone did he sleep? They have to keep the grid working. I need the laptop with the H1 on it. Here, Martina. Dank. Please, print this out, 6 copies. 1 for Angela, 1 for Wolfgang and Ursula, the other 3 for rotation. Oh, make another one for the archive. The time for the next Chancellor's message was nearing, when a State Secretary walked into the government meeting room. He was as white as a wall. Mein Gott, Olaf, you look ill. What happened? Sorry, Frau Bundeskanzlerin, I believe I found out where we are. Somehow, I doubt we will like it, right? Addressed Angela Merkel the secretary dryly. Oh, I cannot get my head around it, how it is possible, but... Wolfgang Schäuble, the Interior Minister, made a dismissing hand gesture. Olaf, please tell us, like taking medicine fast, maybe it will be more palatable then, hopefully. Yes, Minister. We have put together the day to our air and ground recon teams gathered. A beamer powered up and the State Secretary connected his notebook with it. The picture shown was Germany. The good news first. We need it. The good news is that Germany is in one piece, so to speak. Even Heligoland has called in, as did the islands in the Baltic, even if they are now part of some inland. He nodded to a silent question. Oh yes, it will become more strange, a lot more. It seems that all vacationers in other nations were transported as well. They suddenly found themselves in their homes again. No matter where they were before. Well, pardon, I have to correct myself, as long as the persons were on the Northern Hemisphere. From what I see on my newsfeed, some people who were in Australia are still missing. And for some reason it seems that there are some handfuls of persons, who are foreigners and were outside Germany when this catastrophe began, who still were deposited with us here. This is something for the scientists, maybe they have a connection to Germany in some way. But back to the momentarily more important things. He pushed a key on the notebook and the image of Germany changed, becoming embedded into some sort of land. Germany was colored blue, with some red and white colored chunk, around the size of Hessen, sticking at Germany's southwestern borders. The rest of the landmass surrounding was in an off-white color, while the sea and rivers were in a dark blue. Then Olaf added a second picture, a map, for comparison, and it really looked similar. The only difference were Germany and this piece of Nippon in one picture like an overlay. I'm absolutely sure I do not recognize this place. Where from did you get the map? I am sorry if it sounds totally mad, but my son and my daughter are longtime fans of a tabletop game named Warhammer. They often tell and show me stuff about that game. When we created the map from the recon data, I directly saw the similarity to a map of that fictitious game world. And no, I cannot fathom how we can be transported to a world that, for all that is holy, should only be a product of imagination. And I cannot predict how similar the world and her nations might be to those depicted in the game books and novels. I assure you it is not some sort of sick joke. I nearly blacked out when I saw the connection. For a full minute the room was deathly silent, the persons in it contemplating something that should not be possible. Then Angela Merkel, noticeable more pale than usual, spoke up. Olaf, would you please send someone to gather some books about this Warhammer world in a shop for us? We have to look up what might be identical to this first found. Maybe it will help us when we meet the rest of the world here. We have to create work groups for the different nations. We have to get a grip, let us take it like a new country back home on Earth. And if someone has a really good idea how we can put this information into my message to our compatriots without sounding like a madman, I am open for suggestions. Royal Palace, Corin, Bretonia. Sire, we have an urgent message from our border with the wasteland. The Marienburg troops have gone somewhere or vanished. If you want, we can advance and take what should be under your benevolent rule instead of the greedy traders in Marienburg. King Lioncourt of Bretonia read the parchment one of his advisers brought in. Did ye? Is this proofed? Yes, my lord. Our border posts think the Marienburgers became fearful of the strange dragon in the sky they saw shortly after the mercenaries fled. A strange dragon? Yes, sire. He flew high above and was unusually loud and fast, from what the couriers told me. Could this be the dragon from the prophecy the lady gave me, the dragon I will bring down? I thought about that as well, when I heard the news, your highness. Did ye alert the closest dukes and knights? It seems the time for bringing part of the wasteland under the warming rays of civilization is nigh. For Bretonia and the lady. For Bretonia and the lady. Regensburg, Europe, Earth. Rain was pouring down, making the swampy ground even more an unsightly morass. The trees looked healthy, but gave off some twisted vibe. Jaroslaw Pomisel leaned against their green Mercedes G, together with Jaap Brunk, a geography professor from Leiden in the Netherlands. The two were part of one of the international research teams trying to find out what happened to or with Germany. It was mind-boggling. According to the GPS and the old-fashioned land navigation done by the professor as proofing, their team of 8 and 4 off-roaders stood where the oldest marketplace in Regensburg should be. Yet, there was only mud and some vegetation here and there. The Pole and the Dutch watched the geologists taking probes. Professor, what do you think what happened here? This is really creepy. Are they all dead? I know the rumors in the newspapers, but let me tell you, I doubt that the Germans died. Everywhere on the northern hemisphere the changes did just happen like here. Structures did not vanish, no matter how strong the changes were. So if nothing is standing here, even no ruins, Germany has to be somewhere else. Most colleagues and I think that Germany was transported to another world, and where we now stand was part of that other world. This is why the geologists and biologists are swarming all over the place. You mean we, Earth, was attacked by some aliens? Jaroslaw's tone carrying over his skepsis. No, if some race or entity is powerful enough to do something like the event, an attack would have taken us out. no question. We think a total disaster happened there, wherever that might be in the universe. Earth and Germany in special were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. You want a tea? I need something to warm me up. Yes, Jarp, thank you. Can I ask you a question? All nations are hush-hush about what happened to them, and I know you have informations we grunts do not get. Tell me, how bad is it? The consequences of Germany gone poof will be bad enough, but why do we hear so few things about the other changes? What is hidden? Jarp Brunk was rummaging in the Mercedes and began to answer Jaroslaw's questions under four eyes, when a cry let the two men turn their heads. Jaroslaw being outside the car did not get more out than Holy Mother O. Main Tower of the Celestial Order, Altdorf, the Empire. August, I need an audience with the Emperor. It is urgent and of high importance for our nation, so as soon as possible is a must. I had a vision about that strange occurrence in the morning. The result might be needed help or an enemy we never faced before. As you wish, Grand Master. Naval Base Tirpitz-Safen, Kiel, Germany. Captain Fritz Wunderlich, loose relation to the famous tenor, stood on the bridge wing of his minesweeper Fulda, eyes turned to land. The Fulda was the last ship of the Bundesmarine to leave the base, making for Holtenau and the entry locks of the Kiel Channel. Only a handful of fast attack craft would remain in Kiel. During the teleport, as the event was tentatively named, Germany's Baltic coast lost its sea and was now landlocked. All remaining water areas, like the Kiel Fjord or the waters around Rügen, were lakes now. Germany's North Sea coast was still lying at a now new ocean. So Kiel lucked out a bit, since with the Kiel Channel the city had still a connection to the high seas. Rostock, on the other hand, was hit hard. In Warnemund now the water ended. The ships in Rostock, a flotilla of fast attack craft of the Marine included, were caught there in a water area of only some few square miles. Frigate Saxon, near Wilhelmshaven, Germany. At the same time Captain Wunderlich did a silent goodbye to Kiel. The commander of the Saxon, Captain Krug, let his eyes sweep over the ships in his task force. Their orders were of immense importance for Germany. Sail to Araby with expert teams to search for oil. Chancellery, Berlin, Germany. The first 3 days after Germany was swept to another world had been spent in disbelief by most of the population. It was simply such an outrageous event to defy reason. How could a fictitious universe really exist? After Angela Merkel had informed her compatriots, a run on books about the Warhammer universe set it. It were the 2 highest sale days for Games Workshop ever. Unfortunately for them, they would never get all that money made. Despite the political parties still having different opinions, a round table due to the emergency was made. Any idea could help in a situation where demons could exist. We need to speak with the Empire and Bretonia first. They are the only human realms strong enough to be a danger. Yes, we will do it, but I'll fly to Kagoshima in the afternoon to speak with Istamio Izamo eye to eye. They are stranded here like us. Are the geographic teams on board of our task forces? We have to see what is now different here. The Nipponese insist that the winds of magic hit not only Earth, but this world as well. Quite logical, since they were in the Silent Ocean before this all happened. Yes, the tea. A worker of the Kanzleramt stormed into the meeting. Frau Bundeskanzlerin, the sea is returning in several regions of the Baltic, Kurlensee. The fjords of Flensburg and Kiel, Rostock and Rügen, some islands before Mecklenburg-Vorpommern are sea areas again. It started an hour ago like a tide. But in Ostholstein and northwestern Mecklenburg the new coastline is stable. So Neustadt, Lübeck, and Wismar, to name some of the important cities there, will never be true port cities again. Why now? The specialists say that this is because of the seas were disrupted by the event that brought us here and the changes on this world as well. Now the sea level's out again. Well, then we can recall the ships to Kiel. I am glad for that, since it would have been a major negative impact on Kiel being without maritime trade and cruises. You are right on that, Wolfgang. Still, is it true we have swallowed a piece of both Bretonia and the Empire with our arrival? I looked at the maps myself and I fear that is correct. According to our geographs, this is correct, Angela. While the territory the Empire lost is not important for them and I hope their merchants will be delighted to use our roads to reach the Old Forest Road now, we cannot be so sure about the losses Bretonia had. They want to expand into the wastelands and now most of these wastelands are gone. I do not know how they will react once they find out we are where quite a piece of the, where is it? Ah, the Koran marches one sleigh. We must prepare the diplomatic team we gathered for Bretonia for this complication. I hope to be back from Nippon too before either the Empire or Bretonia come knocking. Maybe being thrown back into a slower moving age works out as an advantage here in this case. That would be good, considering the mountain of problems we have. Have a good flight. Stolz von Wertbad, on the wasteland. Peter Schlittenholzer led his trade bark for 3 decades. He knew the river, the Sea of Claws and several routes into the south like the back of his hand. So he was, as were the well-traveled among his crew, totally baffled when the Stolz encountered a fork in the where none should be. Those damn chaos spawn. What happened here? The route he knew went to the right, but where to lead the turn left. Better be safe than sorry, Schlittenholzer thought. Hans, we stay on the correct course. This turn left reeks of a trap. Aye, Captain. When 2 hours later the bark entered a lake which had never been there before and the ship was greeted by ships and boats of unknown origin, flying a black-red-gold banner, Peter simply swore. Oh frack.